Let's talk about Patrick Mahomes appearing to be in mid-season form as he continues to go all the way off in camp practices, former Chiefs cornerback Chris Lammons being suspended for 3 games, as well as current Chiefs defensive end Charles Omenihu being suspended for double that, 6 games, and then try to figure out what the Chiefs should do in the midst of his absence. But first, how about those? First up, it's worth mentioning that even though he's not on the team anymore, cornerback Chris Lammons got suspended by the NFL today for 3 games, along with Saints running back Alvin Kamara for their involvement in the 2022 incident in Las Vegas the day before the Pro Bowl. And if you've been following my channel for a while, you know I've covered this in several videos, but basically Kamara, Lammons, and others beat a guy up in a nightclub the night before the Pro Bowl, and the league finally acted. They will be allowed to participate in all preseason practices and games, then can return to the active roster on Monday, September 25th after week 3. And honestly, this is not a bad suspension at all things considered. It's honestly light enough that I think the Chiefs should have considered keeping Lammons around for his special teams value, but it is what it is, and he's now signed with the Indianapolis Colts, so I wish him the best of luck in his next chapter. And we are definitely going to talk more about suspensions later in this video, but first, let's talk about training camp. Today's practice started indoors today due to thunderstorms in the area, but after warm-ups, the team was able to head outside and finish on the field in front of the fans. Today was a red zone day, a point of emphasis often for this team considering they are one of the best in the league at scoring touchdowns in the red zone. In fact, nobody did it better other than the Dallas Cowboys last season, scoring a touchdown 71.43% of the time in the red zone, while the Chiefs were right behind at 71.08%. Anyway, as far as injuries go, Jody Fortson is still out after dislocating his shoulder roughly a week ago. They were able to pop it back in right after it happened, and it's looking like no surgery is needed, at least from what they've let on, but they are going to give him time to rest. L'Jarius Sneed is once again out as he's dealing with a lingering knee issue of sorts, swelling and soreness that's been going on since OTAs. Kadarius Toney is obviously still out recovering from the knee cleanup surgery he had. Hopefully he's back by the first quarter of the season at the latest, depending on if they place him on IR after cutdowns or not. Jalen Watson was missing today, but it turned out to be an excused absence, so I don't think there's any issue there with his health. And with Jalen Watson and Sneed both out of today's practice, the Chiefs also worked in Echo Boydo with the ones who Andy said is doing a nice job getting better every day, but added he needs to eat a little bit because he's a little thin, which I thought was a funny ad by Big Red, though he did say Echo is a heck of a competitor and has great skill. Another defensive back who worked in with the ones today was 7th round rookie Nick Jones with the first team defense. He had multiple pass breakups today, including this one against Justyn Ross, which may have been defensive pass interference and also could have been a better throw by Mahomes if we're going to be honest, but it's just camp, so let's keep it moving because he also had this nice pass breakup against Marquez Valdez-Scantling, another standout play by the rookie. Now, MVS landed awkwardly on that play and was a bit slow to get up, leaving the field, and while he came back in shortly after appearing to be fine, great news, Richie James was actually the man to fill his spot. And speaking of Richie, he had a nice play here in which Mahomes hit him running across the middle of the field. Richie bobbled the pass, but finished strong as he fell to the ground. Richie also had a great attempt of a corner end zone touchdown. Unclear if he made it in, but it drew some praise from the crowd and is one of many, hopefully, touchdowns to come from Richie James. Anyway, back to injuries. After missing practice yesterday, linebacker Tranquill was seen back out there, which is good news, and he's looking more than good on this play here, moving Blake Bell aside as if he was a mere inconvenience, which got me wondering, how many sacks is Tranquill about to get this year? The sky is the limit in Spags defense, certainly, but let me know how many sacks you think he could get in the comments down below. And then more injuries. Defensive back Reese Taylor is still out with a hamstring issue, as well as both Mike Dana, calf strain, and Charles Omenihu, also a calf issue, were out today. More on that man later. Trust me. And with their absences, yesterday, defensive ends Malik Herring and Joshua Kando got more reps with the first team defense, but today it was the first round pick, the rookie, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, who could be seen out there in some one-on-ones against left tackle Donovan Smith. He clearly won the first rep on the outside attempt, but Smith won the next, and disclaimer alert, don't read too much into one-on-ones like this. Every single player has good and bad reps, so don't stress too much about Donovan Smith. I just thought it was cool to see FAU getting work in with the ones today, because he's going to be asked at some point in time to step out there and rotate in with the rest of the defensive line. But speaking of Donovan Smith, left guard Joe Thuney complimented Donovan today, saying he knows the game inside and out. There's so many great things to say about him, and he's really enjoyed growing alongside him. Thuney said Wanya Morris is doing a nice job as a swing tackle, playing both sides. He's really working hard and basically doing all he can to absorb the playbook, and also added that when blocking for Mahomes, you simply keep blocking until you hear the whistle, because you never know what this man is going to do back there to keep the play alive. Next up, defensive tackle Turk Wharton is officially off the PUP list and rehabbing as they start ramping him up for his return. Punter Tommy Townsend was seen out there punting after a mild sprain a few days ago, and per reports, he was looking fantastic today, so the ankle injury is indeed minor and nothing to worry about. Pacheco was still out there working in the yellow "do not ever touch me" vest, but he's slowly getting closer to a return. He even caught at least one quick pass from Mahomes and teams, but obviously no contact was made after the catch. And on the subject of running backs, Andy said that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is practicing hard. He's aggressive, and you can tell he comes with experience. Clyde himself had a productive day today, catching a couple of TDs in Redzone, and also got the most first-team reps during 9-on-7s as well. Clyde said he's out there just working hard and doing everything he's asked to do, and camp is going pretty smooth for him overall. Quote, "Whenever my number's called, I'll be there to do my job and do what I need to do as a running back. His years in the league has been a learning process and a maturation process, and he's honored to have been part of winning a Super Bowl with the team. He sees the details of things a lot easier now going into year 4, but he's always learning and trying to grow as a player. He's trying to figure out what his role is going to be this season, but again, he's simply here to do whatever is asked of him." Another running back who is doing whatever he possibly can to stand out when his number is called is Deneric Prince, who had a nice outside run here for 6, sprinting in untouched, and I was impressed with the burst he showed here on the outside on this play. That man is quick. And just a reminder, at the Combine, Prince ran a 4.41 40 time, which was the 4th fastest among all running backs, and he also recorded the highest RAS score, relative athletic score, of any running back at the Combine, and in his draft profile, he, quote, "has breakaway speed that could make him a sleeper prospect." Well, I'm glad he's here in KC, because Brett Veach certainly wasn't sleeping on the lad.
You like that? You like that?
And if you want to be amped up often like Kirk Cousins was in that clip there, make sure to head on over to coffee.hbtchiefs.com to snag some of that wonderful HBTC blend of Benchwarmer brew. It's one of the most popular selling coffees on the site thanks to your support, and with origins of Ethiopia and Mexico and flavor notes of citrus and chocolate, it's no wonder why many of you like this very smooth medium roast that will for sure leave you with a victorious buzz. Anyway, another player who's also been buzzing at camp, at least in my opinion, is the veteran quarterback Blaine Gabbert. He's been making standout play after standout play, including this perfectly placed ball to Cornell Powell yesterday, and Andy Reid spoke about him today, saying he's happy with Gabbert's progress so far in the offense. He comes with 13 plus years of experience, so, quote, "there's not too much he hasn't seen from a defensive standpoint presented to him." Big Red then complimented the receiver room, saying they are competing hard, and what he's personally looking at is their ability to retain all the plays, make catches in tight quarters, contested catches, but seeing them in the games in preseason is definitely part of it, which is the next step aside from standing out at camp. And speaking of standouts, a player who continues to stand out and shine is Justyn Ross. We've talked about him a lot on the channel recently as he continues to shine at training camp, making DBs disappear, showing great route running in his 1v1s. His 6'4" frame allows him to go up and get the balls, and he's getting looks from Mahomes, who continues to pass him the rock. Even last week, he made a nice one-handed grab here on this play, and the hype train prior to camp was already high, but now it's at a level that's even higher than Snoop Dogg lives his life on a regular basis, and the Chiefs social media team just keeps giving the people what they want, keeping the addiction well alive. Because today, they showed this video of Justyn going one-on-one against Caliph Halassi. Probably butchered his name. But anyway, he jumped up in the corner of the end zone to make a very nice one-handed grab for what it looks like to be a touchdown. I watched it a bunch of times, and it appears he maintained control with that one hand, maintaining control of the football. Both feet does end up tapping, but even if it wasn't a completion, you could possibly argue it either way. It's still yet another positive play from Justyn Ross, who is focused merely on stacking good days in camp without a major focus on the future. And that's where I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you think this is a catch? I've showed it a few times by now, so you got to let me know your thoughts either way in the comments down below. Next up, I got to shout out safety Justin Reid, who had a nice INT here on this play with Mahomes targeting Travis Kelce, but Justin Reid said, no thank you, and snagged it. The offense did score a bunch in red zone period today, but this was certainly a nice read by Justyn Reid. Nice read by Reid, you like that? So hats off to him for that. However, I gotta give props to Patrick Mahomes once again, who early in training camp appears to be in midseason form, making throw after throw, as well as completing 15 straight passes today in today's long drive period. That's right. It was reported that Patrick Mahomes completed 15 straight in 11 on 11 with the first team offense, which in some regards shouldn't surprise anyone, but at the same time, it's still flat out impressive and downright insane to have the best quarterback in the entire league on the Kansas City Chiefs. And as a lifelong Chiefs fan myself, that is absolute insanity, and you gotta love it. Something else that happened today that was pretty freaking wild was the announcement that defensive end Charles Omenihu is going to be suspended for 6 games. That's right. Shortly after the announcement that Alvin, Kamara, and Chris Lammons were suspended for 3, it was announced that Chiefs defensive end Charles Omenihu would be suspended for literally double that, 6 games. And in case you were unaware, like, what? Why is this happening to Charles Omenihu? 6 games? That's insane. Well, Omenihu was actually arrested back in January of 2023 for suspicion of misdemeanor domestic violence. The San Jose Police Department responded to a call to investigate a domestic violence incident, and when they arrived, a woman said her boyfriend, Omenihu, pushed her to the ground during an argument. Officers didn't see any visible physical injuries to the woman, but she did complain about arm pain. The woman then declined medical attention while the officers were at the scene, and then Omenihu was booked into the Santa Clara County main jail and shortly after was released after posting bail. So yeah, it looks like there were 3 total charges, 2 misdemeanor counts of domestic battery and a misdemeanor count of illegally destroying, removing, or obstructing the use of a wireless communication device. The legal case was apparently resolved when Omenihu reached an agreement in which he pleaded no contest to the 3rd charge, performed community service, and underwent 32 hours of counseling, according to the Santa Clara County District Attorney's Office. And court records show no record of a conviction, suggesting that he participated in a diversion program that expunged the conviction upon his completion of counseling and community service. However, the league investigated the situation themselves and decided to suspend him for 6 games for violating the league's personal conduct policy, which puts him out until October 13th following the team's Week 6 game versus the Broncos. However, the suspension doesn't take place until September 4th, which means Omenihu will be eligible to participate in preseason games and training camp practices until the first week of the regular season. And, well, this situation is certainly not ideal. There is no way in hell the Chiefs are surprised about the suspension. The court case was pending when they signed him, which is why I think they were able to sign him to a mere 2-year, $16 million deal worth up to $20 million in incentives. And the Chiefs front office knows that the NFL does not play games when it comes to domestic violence cases. I mean, if Willie Gay was suspended for 4 games for his situation involving the vacuum cleaner, I expected at least that long of a suspension from Omenihu, so I'm sure they did as well. And according to Matt Derrick, the suspension will cost Omenihu roughly $380,000 in salary this season, but the real kicker is that his contract has $4 million available in incentives, $2 million for each season of his deal, that are all dependent on him playing 65% of his snaps. You can see the graphic here on the screen, and therefore it looks like it would be very hard for Omenihu to reach that 65% of total snaps in 2023 while completely missing 6 games. So yeah, ultimately the Chiefs save a little bit of money, but this is still a definite loss for Kansas City and their D-line that already lost Frank Clark and Colin Saunders this offseason to other teams. And that's not even to mention that Chris Jones is still holding out amidst contract negotiations for an extension. Well, hopefully the suspension of Omenihu causes Brett Veach to get a deal done sooner than later with Chris Jones, because in my opinion, they should consider now signing a veteran defensive end like Carlos Dunlap or someone else that's still available and free agency to fill the void of Omenihu. Go ahead and pick your poison. I don't really care, but I think Chris Jones and the Chiefs need to get a deal done ASAP before anything like that can happen, because a Chris Jones extension will indeed free up cap space needed to make that kind of a move. So I know the news of the suspension is certainly unfortunate, but the front office and coaching staff have proven themselves time and time again to be capable of developing a plan and making things work, all things considered. I still think it's wild though that Chris Lammons was shown on film on a security camera footage at this nightclub, playing a part of knocking a man out and continuing to beat this man while he was unconscious and gets suspended for 3 games. Meanwhile, while Omenihu did plead no contest, court records show no record of a conviction, yet boom, double that and 6 games. And I'm never gonna claim to be an expert on situations like this, and while both men are clearly in the wrong here, okay, domestic violence, very serious. Beating a man while he's unconscious, very serious. It's certainly interesting how the league hands out punishments. One thing is for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, the NFL does not play games when it comes to cases involving domestic violence, and they will continue cracking down hard on cases like this for years to come. But that's where I want to pass the question off to you guys. What do you think about this? Will we see the Chiefs defense suffer without Charles Omenihu? Will this cause Brett Veach to get a deal done with Chris Jones sooner than later so they have money to sign another defensive end with Omenihu being out for 6 weeks? Or are the Chiefs fine without Charles Omenihu, considering they have first-round picks like George Karlaftis and Felix Anudike-Uzomah? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?